All right, everybody, we are live now, episode 39 of Just the Gi Top podcast. So today we're again honored to have Roy Dean on the podcast. So Roy, first of all, thank you very much for coming on today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Thanks. So Roy, for anybody who doesn't know, is second degree black belt under Roy Harris and the owner of Roy Dean Academy. So we'll just go through our regular podcast members as usual. There's myself, Adam Cousins. We have Ahmed Tirani.
Hello.
We have Jordan Short.
Hey.
And we have Rami Tirani.
Yo. Also, I just want to quickly thank the sponsors. VHTS, Very Hard to Submit. They're a gi company. They have gi, rash guards, spats, all sorts of stuff. You can check out all their stuff at veryhardtosubmit.com. We also have a 20% off code that you can use when you check out with them. It's JTGT, all capital letters. I don't know if capital letters really matter, but use it anyway just to make sure. Also want to thank Pohada Gear. Same thing, 20% off with them. It's JTGT, same exact promo code. 20% off. Check out their stuff. They have the T-shirts that Adam sports really, really well. So check them out. There's I think they have 3 or 4 different shirts, or shirts, sweaters, and beanie as well.
Excellent. So, Roy, for those who don't know, I know that you've kind of had a sort of a lifelong martial arts journey. So maybe you could just kind of talk to us a bit about how you got started in martial arts, and then specifically how you got started in jiu-jitsu.
When I grew up, I didn't do a lot of sports as a kid. A lot of my friends growing up in Alaska were involved in hockey or soccer, but I was always into more, individualized sports. And I was sent to Japan as an exchange student when I was 16. And over there, they encouraged me to do a Japanese art after school. I had a couple different choices. I could do kendo, I could do ikebana, which is like flower arranging. But I chose judo, and they warned me. They said, judo training is very severe, but I was 16. I was definitely up for the challenge, and it was a great experience, being able to get kind of that foundation in grappling through judo in Japan. No English instruction, just a lot of repetitions, a lot of hard work, and really kind of demystifying what martial arts was. Sometimes there can be, a little bit of mystique, Asian mystique, involved in those arts, but it's just a lot of blood, sweat, tears, and good technique. When I came back to the U.S., I was really interested in Aikido. And Steven Seagal was an influence, and so I got involved in Aikido. Eventually became an uchi-deshi, or live-in student, to an Aikido master. He also had his own Japanese jiu-jitsu system, which I trained in for a number of years. That was in Monterey, California. And during that time, I got exposed to a true Brazilian jiu-jitsu teacher in Claudio França. He was one of the first real black belts to be teaching in Northern California. And then eventually I went to UC San Diego and started training under Professor Roy Harris. And he took me from blue belt to black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And he's really a phenomenal teacher, and I feel lucky to be one of his students.
Oh, it's quite the journey. How long were you in Japan training judo for?
So I was there for a year. I got sent when I was 16, and when you're 16, a year goes quick now, but it seemed like a long time. And it was a really interesting process. I trained 5 times a week. Once a month there'd be a shiai, or a competition. And additionally, toward the end, one of the guys from the Rotary Club that hosted my exchange kind of took me under his wing. He was a really good judo player when he was in high school, and he got me private lessons from this judo master named Igami Shoten in his home dojo. You wouldn't believe how many people were on this mat. Small room, like 40 people. I'm surprised they could pull it off, but it was really an incredible time to be studying judo. And when you're young, when you're a teenager, judo doesn't hurt as much as it does as you get a little bit older.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I stopped doing judo completely as a result of it just hurts too much. I can't take it.
It is. There's something really sweet about when you get a well-timed throw, but it just takes one throw. Maybe you took the ukemi right, but they land on you. It's It's a rough sport. It's a rough sport, but a beautiful art.
Yeah. So back when they said judo is severe, like that's what you said a little earlier. What did they mean by that? Did they just mean like severe as in the training was tough, or that yeah, he was more injury prone, or what was it? Were they trying to warn you about?
Well, maybe a little bit all the above. There were some injuries. I used to sprain my ankle all the time. I actually walked around with like an ankle wrap in my bag because it would happen in, whether you're doing foot sweeps or people are attacking your leg for like an ankle prop throw, or you're just moving too fast on the mat. One guy did land on his shoulder and broke his clavicle. He was on my high school team. And, that kind of injury happens in judo. You don't quite go over properly. And, but it's just a lot of, it's tough. A lot of repetitions, you get thrown. And if you're not willing to be humbled, it's just like jiu-jitsu, Yeah. The first day I sparred, my team captain threw me over and over and over again. And unless you're willing to accept, like, wow, I don't know what I'm doing, and this guy's really good, and there's nothing I can do about it. And it squares with you right away, so it's a really powerful art. And I'm glad that the prevalence of like UFC and BJJ has re-sparked an interest in judo.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you at your academy now? Do you guys still focus a lot on judo? Is it part of your curriculum?
It's part of the curriculum, but it's not emphasized heavily. There are times where I teach more throws, but I was talking with one of the black belts I have a lot of respect for is Dave Camarillo, and he's an amazing judo and BJJ practitioner. And he said, man, just work it in a little bit every class. If you have a specific judo class during the week, it'll start out big, but it whittles away over time as people get thrown more. So just work it in a little bit every class, and I think that's an important part of the overall jiu-jitsu curriculum.
Yeah, no, I mean, for me, like my biggest gripe with it is that we would do judo once in a while. It's like just as you're getting into it, you don't do it for another couple of weeks, and so then when they reintroduce it a couple of weeks later, then you get hurt again. You know what I mean? So, and I'm finding, I don't know, do you agree with that statement or?
The rate that things are recycled in a curriculum definitely has an effect on how well people are able to implement it. And something like tachiwaza or standing techniques, it's all about the timing. And if you lose the timing and you're not doing the uchikomi, the fit-ins, so that you can have the opportunity to fit your body in for the throw, unless you're doing that all the time, people are really heavy. If you're in the right position and they're moving and you move in at the same time, then they can be really light. Yeah. But that's why when guys just go to, they're going to have a tournament, they start doing stand-up, they're like, this is impossible. I'm not even close to throwing this guy. Because they're not off-balancing him. The kazushi and, having this uninterrupted movement to get the person on their toes so they're light, then you fit into the position. It's difficult to do when you're just doing it sporadically.
So, Roy, when you were training judo, was there much focus on the nuwaza or the ground portion at all?
A little bit. I trained at my high school, and there was a little guy, he was a black belt, but an upperclassman on the team, and he showed me the power of newaza. I mean, I remember he choked me. I had no idea what he was doing, but he ended up choking me, and they showed some newaza techniques, but it wasn't emphasized. I would say it would be probably 20% of the curriculum. Okay. And when I trained at that private dojo under the judo master, I remember he showed ude garami, which is like an Americana, and I just couldn't wrap my head around it. It was the first time I'd ever seen something like that, and I was just like, what? It seems so foreign. Of course, with jiu-jitsu, it's like, the currency.
So, excuse me, with all of with all the martial arts training you've had, the judo, aikido, everything else, so how was it that you kind of came to settle into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as your main focus?
Well, I think there's an energy that goes through different Jiu-Jitsu. Jiu-Jitsu is an art that evolves in different times, different eras for different needs. And I think that's just where the juice was. It's with Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. When service members came back from Japan in like the 1950s, and they were having judo in movies, and that's where the juice was in Jiu-Jitsu at that time. It was in judo. And then maybe during the 90s, it was in a different form. It was in Aikido. And that came from Daitoryu Aiki Jiu-Jitsu. And then in the late 90s, the early 2000s, man, it's the BJJs, Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. That's where the energy is. That's where the toughest guys were going. Now I think the toughest guys go straight to MMA. MMA is its own style, but back when Royce came on the scene, all those guys wanted to do what he was doing, and I don't know. There's something incredibly powerful about sparring with like a purple belt. And I had black belts in judo and a lot of Aikido training, a lot of Japanese Jiu-Jitsu training, and just getting destroyed by a purple belt and thinking, man, this is good stuff. It also seemed like more of a thinking man's game. And overall, BJJ is much more low impact than judo. And even Aikido, there's a lot of high falls. There's a lot of ukemi that you have to take in those arts that is cool while you're young, but as you get older, it definitely adds up.
Mm-hmm.
So what are your thoughts? Because I know you said like it's very different now, especially because you have people who are more so focused on MMA, almost as its own martial art. Do you feel like that's the right approach to things nowadays, or do you think going at each individual martial art is maybe the better approach? What are your thoughts?
Oh, that's a cool question. I definitely think that if you want to be a mixed martial artist of the highest caliber, you have to do it like GSP did. You have to study each discipline individually and go deep within each one. And I think that his time with the Canadian Olympic wrestling team, really made him the best. Of course, he's a great jiu-jitsu black belt and has great striking, but that wrestling that he did in that specific discipline, I think that really served him well. And I think that if you want to, back like when 1993 when Royce in the first UFC came out, like BJJ, Vale Tudo, and MMA, it was all kind of one. Even when MMA, like King of the Cage, was emerging in Southern California, it was still, you were in the audience and the Machados were there, or, these other crews, some of them BJJ, some of them like Chris Brennan's Next Generation, they're kind of going the more no-gi MMA route. But now, you go to an MMA school, you study all the disciplines, and it really is its own style. It was much more merged earlier, but I like it. I like the fact that MMA, MMA guys aren't trying to fit into a BJJ class. They might be studying it, but they're not pretending like this is what they want. I've had many people come to my school. They want to fight. They don't want to be in a gi. They want to fight and be as good as they can, as quickly as they can. And I completely understand that. So they don't see how a gi would serve them, or being in a more traditional BJJ academy. It's kind of a slow route for where they want to go. So, an academy like mine is not the place for them. They should go to an MMA school that will get them a fight really quickly.
Oh, so do you actually recommend, like, has that happened where somebody said, well, I want to fight as soon as possible, I want to be doing MMA or whatever, and you defer them to somebody else, or what? How do you do that?
Yeah. Surely you can offer input on that as well, right? Like,
yeah, a lot of guys, if they know they want to do MMA, I tell them, for example, I don't let my white belts compete, even just in submission grappling or gi jiu-jitsu. White belt division, I feel, is too uneven. People come from all kinds of backgrounds. I let them compete at blue belt. So my recommendation for MMA is you got to be a purple belt in jiu-jitsu and like 2 years striking training minimum before you go in there. That's my personal recommendation. And I've had a few of my guys be like, hey man, I want to do, we're watching the fights. He's like, I want to do MMA. And I say, what's the upside? Tell me the upside to doing that. And if they really are a fighter and they want to do it, the upside is how they feel, how they express themselves in the ring, and they want to do it no matter what. But a lot of BJJ guys think about doing MMA, but it's kind of a risky endeavor. If you want to do it, that's great, but you can get hurt in the cage, and I've seen some guys get really hurt. So It's a serious thing. It's a serious thing. MMA is the most free-form fighting experience that we have, that's still relatively safe.
Wow.
I think all combat sports are limited rules fights, and MMA has the least rules. And it's cool that we sanction that and that we celebrate those fighters. I love MMA. I love watching MMA.
With BJJ being like still such a young art, and it's constantly evolving, do you try and incorporate other art forms into your BJJ?
Oh, I think we should all keep an open mind to other arts, other styles, because sometimes they're able to generate leverage or have entries that are just considered unconventional by like in the BJJ mindset. So I think definitely studying other grappling styles like Sambo, catch wrestling, you should know how they think. Pure wrestling, whether, whatever kind of style, and even, submission grappling with an MMA perspective where some strikes are thrown in. I think all of that is valuable. At my academy, it's mainly just traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, not with a tournament focus, just more of like, hey man, this is the art, it's all about the submission. And if you want to branch out into any of that stuff, I encourage my students to just be the best martial artists they can.
Do you do a lot of like self-defense style techniques and things like that then?
Not that much on the self-defense. Occasionally I'll show some options. One of my students, unfortunately, was stabbed with a pair of scissors by his roommate. It was in the news here recently from behind, and he said Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu saved my life. He ended up just kind of going on instinct and pinning the guy, and and so I kind of taught some options if you're attacked with a sharp object, knife, whatever that may be. And thank goodness he was okay. But generally, my thought on self-defense is if you know Jiu-Jitsu well enough, you can spontaneously generate leverage and know how to move your body intuitively in basically any given situation.
Oh, that's awesome. That's a good explanation. Because yeah, I hate learning self-defense.
It's cool. It's cool to get those perspectives and those. I'm like, oh, I see how they get off the line of attack. I see how they're going to generate leverage against that particular joint and set up the response. I don't think you have to ingrain everything, but it's good to get different principles.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people say things like, you don't defend against a knife attack, you survive a knife attack.
Oh well, that's true, and and to be honest, a lot of the knife defenses I've learned, it's good to have an option. It may not be like the best option. I would gladly give up my wallet.
Yeah, run. That's what
Literally talk your way out of it. If you're a good talker, man, you'll never have to implement the self-defense group.
Yeah, totally.
I like your perspective on that, Roy. Though, with respect to if you know enough jiu-jitsu, you know how to move your body to generate that leverage or to get yourself in a good position. Because when you look at like a lot of schools and that have a self-defense curriculum, it's like, okay, if the guy comes up and bear hugs you from behind, I'll grab the wrist and do this, but it kind of forces you into thinking of things in a very kind of narrow sense, whereas if you just think about jiu-jitsu as a whole, it's a bit more free-flowing, I guess.
Yeah, and I think that's the point we all want to get to. I mean, it's good to have steps. It's good to have a path. It's good to have steps 1 through 4. But it's not the end of the world if somebody skips step number 3. You don't say, go back to step 3, man. I missed that. No, you're not following along. You just flow with it.
Yeah.
Do you think like concepts are more important than like overall techniques then?
It's a mix. I know some people do very well going the conceptual route. They, 1,000 techniques are contained within a few concepts. It's good, however, I think that me personally, I need to write lines of code in my jiu-jitsu program. I need to copy other people's code so I can learn to write my own. I need those baby steps along the way. I need to do the drilling to learn to get the muscle memory and to get it ingrained in there so there's no hesitation. And then over time, when I have enough patterns, I can connect those patterns in a way where it's uniquely mine, but then also once you master those patterns, you have more time. For example, once you know how to pass the guard and hold positions, submission opportunities open up if you can just hold the position, because you see how they try to escape. They do like one or two things usually, and then that's your opportunity. So, it's like gymnastics. You don't do backflips on the first day. You need a progression. And for me, doing drilling is part of the progression, but eventually you think more conceptually so that your movement isn't as predictable.
So you're kind of talking about, you learn a specific technique, and then once you understand that technique, you understand how it works, then you can start kind of breaking it down and working on variations on a theme.
Exactly. And then as you go deeper into a technique, like some people look at a technique and they see the shape of the technique. Okay, that's, whatever, that's an arm lock. But then once you really get into the arm bar, you're like, man, I really have to pull my heels into my butt. I got to keep that tight. Oh my God, squeezing your knees is really important. And you feel how tight it needs to be and what needs to be tight in order to have effective mechanics in an arm lock. And when you know that, then you can deconstruct it too. Oh man, if I can just keep him from squeezing his knees together, if I can just keep that leg from coming over my face, then, so it's, and then then you start going into the more conceptual route. If I can block this critical mechanic, then I'm going to be able to prevent him from doing the submission, whatever it is. If you don't let somebody get your arm across their center line in guard, very difficult for them to ever do an arm lock. You go earlier and earlier in the equation.
That's amazing. Yeah, so you touched really quick on drilling. I read somewhere that you like to drill a technique about 400 times per class. Is that still something that you follow?
I don't know if that was I think I was talking about Mike Swain. He mentioned when he was doing judo that he had to do 400 uchikomi. He had to do 400 repetitions before they would, in just the morning practice, before they would do anything, before they had opened the door. So no, I don't believe in that. I do have my guys do quite a bit of drilling, but and I think I said that so that jiu-jitsu guys that do it like 4 times or 8 times, and they're like, yeah, I got that. They realize, those players, they do it thousands of times, and they still keep doing it. They know it, but they just want to keep greasing that groove so it's spontaneous and lightning fast.
All right.
Roy, looking at on your website, your curriculum, I think one of the things that you're known for, not only your instructionals, but your belt requirement videos. The structure that exists in your organization is very evident. Like when you look through your student handbook, for example, like the class structure is clearly laid out. The requirements for the belt levels are clearly laid out. Is that just something that's always kind of been a part of who you are, just having that structure and that form?
My background is in, kind of classical martial arts, but, BJJ I definitely consider kind of a classical art form as well now. And they've generally been pretty regimented and very structured. In fact, sometimes overly so, I felt. But just a little bit of clarity, just a little bit of structure in how, for example, how a class is led, with a bow in, a bow out, just kind of a unifying of energy and focus at the beginning and at the end of class. I think that really helps. It adds a lot. And when you get just one thing that adds a lot, I want to incorporate that on a regular basis. So, blue belt requirements, it's about the clarity. That Mr. Harris provided me. Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was kind of a nebulous art form where it's like you just train harder, How do I get better? You just train harder. But Mr. Harris laid out a curriculum that was, and I do that curriculum for blue belt requirements. And just having that kind of clarity of, let's have a foundation of positional escapes. And don't worry so much about submissions until later. Until after you can really, you learn how to pass the guard. And I don't know, that kind of clear foundational approach to BJJ, it made a lot of sense to me. And he's a very verbal teacher, and I definitely respond well to that kind of instruction.
That's awesome. You mentioned your blue belts again. Like there's a curriculum for blue belts, and you also touched a little bit on why they can't compete. That's I've never heard that before, but and you touched on it just a little bit. You said it's too much of an open playing field, right? Can you elaborate on that a little bit?
Oh, yeah. So once you're a blue belt, you can compete. I encourage you to compete. But as a white belt, I have felt, I personally felt when I think I was a blue belt, or maybe I was a white belt, and they threw a blue belt on me for one of my first tournaments. And I remember in the match, I just didn't have enough tricks in my bag. I just didn't, and it wasn't like I could figure it out on the fly. It was a good experience, but I just didn't feel like I had enough tools, and I don't want to give that kind of competition experience to my students until they have enough tools in their toolbox to be able to win a match. Now, there's also the uneven playing field. Like in the Pan Ams, there was a fighter with the UFC, and he entered the white belt division. He won. There's also been like judo black belts that entered the white belt division, or like national college wrestling champions that enter, and you're just like, dude, I know you want to win, but really, it seems a little unfair, and I don't want to. And you never know. So that's just a rule. I want to give my students enough tools, and I just want to make sure the playing field's a little more even.
I mean, that actually. Sorry, I was going to say that actually kind of makes a little bit of sense because there's no real way to enforce that. I know in boxing, whatever, you could be, they broke it up based on number of fights you've had in the amateur level. So 0 to 10, and then was a certain amount of people who go in, and then they break it up based on fights. But of course, you never know. You could be facing somebody who's a kickboxer for 3 years or something like that, and he's coming into the amateur boxing league, you know what I mean? And I'm sure you get that with the same, like you said, wrestling coming into jiu-jitsu. The guy's been wrestling for 4 years, comes in as a white belt, he's probably going to clean up. Do you think that's something that can ever be fixed? Or is your approach by holding them until blue belt really the solution?
I'm not saying it's a solution for everybody, but it's just a clean, elegant solution for us. I believe in some submission grappling tournaments they've changed it from jiu-jitsu experience to overall grappling experience. It's still, it's an honor system, and I don't know. The grappling.
That's a crazy thing, yeah. It's like an honor system.
Most people want a challenge. Most people want a challenge. So, some people just care about the win, and the challenge is secondary. But whatever. It's just their stage of development in the art, and the art's big enough for everybody.
I think you make a really good point about the competition and the level of competition at white belt. I competed a lot at white belt, but there was a lot of times where you lose a match and you think, I didn't even get beaten by jiu-jitsu. Like at the white belt level, it's you can have somebody that comes in that is maybe very athletically strong that can still win a lot of matches just based on their athleticism, because a lot of the competitors don't know that much about jiu-jitsu. So it's a good point, especially if somebody's doing their first tournament, you want it to be a jiu-jitsu experience, right? So I can appreciate that.
Cool.
We had not even too long ago, there was a tournament around here where a white belt had went into like an open weight, open belt division and won. I mean, the guy is huge, but I mean, how much BJJ skill does he have, really?
Oh, he was just really big, though. I mean, he was like closer to 300 pounds, and he's an athlete. And yeah, he did beat some brown belts and purple belts. And
oh, well, I'm sure he was ferocious. I've seen really high-level athletes, or whether they're power lifters or they're at a high level in some other realm and discipline. They have the intensity that you don't often see in jiu-jitsu, because sometimes you have to be extremely intense in other sports, whereas jiu-jitsu, you want to be at kind of an optimal arousal level so you have peak performance, but generally it's more laid back.
Yeah.
It's not quite as intense in wartime as maybe some other sports.
Mm-hmm. touching on tournaments really quick, Roy. You've officially retired from competition, correct?
Yeah, I'm not competing anymore, and I'm just focusing on my students.
Awesome. No, sounds good. When was the last time you did compete?
The last time I competed was the U.S. Open in 2009,
Okay.
and I lost against a very tough guy named Mike Weaver.
Okay.
And then earlier that year, I did the Worlds, and I won my first match, and I lost my second.
Oh, that's awesome. Oh, sorry. Was someone saying something? No, sorry. Maybe that's feedback. No. So what I was getting at is that some people don't know. Like, I actually found this by accident. I didn't even mean to find it, but you had a really crazy match with Nick Diaz in 2001.
Yeah. As a blue belt, he was like,
Yeah, man, that was a wild match, man.
But yeah.
Um,
It was good. It's interesting how, there are generations in jiu-jitsu. There are generations of, he went jiu-jitsu to MMA, but there are generations of guys that come up where you see each other at the tournaments all the time, and then because they're all kind of in the same weight class, and then you go to the next level, and it's cool. And then he's part of that, jiu-jitsu generation.
yeah, I know. I just wanted to mention that. So if viewers out there, if you want to check it out, YouTube that Roy Dean versus Nick Diaz, it's pretty fun to watch, and it was great. I think the one I saw was more of a highlight compilation, but still, like, the scrambles were sick, and the escapes and the transitions in and out was just for blue belts. That was pretty good. Like, so, did you teach that today? Like, it was pretty tenacious, man. Like, I don't know if you did, like, your instructionals are very. And we'll go into that, but they're very detailed. They're very, you know what I mean? It's like a lot of leverage, a lot of control.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, what I saw on that match was just it was intense, man. Athleticism, like.
Yeah, that was definitely. I will not forget that match because I had won the grappler. They had the first Grappler's Quest in Las Vegas, and that I won that my division there. That was the first tournament I had won. And I was coming into the U.S. Open like, I'm going to get this. I am going to get this. And I won my first match, and then I went against Nick in the second round. And I don't know. Sometimes you have that mentality where, like, I'm going to take this. This is going to happen. This is my day. And it was like, both of us didn't want to give in at all. And I felt he was tired. I was tired. It was definitely a battle. It felt like a battle of spirits. And at the end, he ended up winning on points, and it was a great match. I don't know if I could have continued. I was so tired afterwards. But the ref said it was a beautiful fight. And somebody suggested that I actually they would have loved to have seen an uncut version of it. So I'm doing this experiment, Roy Dean Academy Online. It's a paid YouTube channel. And I went back, and I found it, and I just exported it uncut. I did it so that match, you can if you go to Roy Dean Academy Online, you can watch it. I have like the regular version from Blue Belt Requirements, and then I have the full with people screaming, and it's kind of like, it's interesting. And then I did the same thing with my second degree black belt test. I got that, and I exported it, completely uncut, so you can see all the suffering in full glory.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, I'm actually just checking it out really quick. So yeah, that's roydeanacademy.com/videos. So yeah, so that's where you go to check out that match, the full entire match.
You go to YouTube and
look
at, and I just launched this earlier this week. At Roy Dean Academy Online. You can get to it if you go to my YouTube channel. There's a link to it there, or you can just search Roy Dean Academy Online. So I have all of my DVDs and apps and basically everything I've produced, and I upload it at the highest quality possible to YouTube. It's not available worldwide. I didn't really realize that. It's only available in 28 countries. And so I've gotten a few emails saying, "What's up with that, man? Why isn't it available in 28?" But we're working on it. We're working on it.
It's wild. All right, good to hear.
So, Roy, just a quick question, because you did mention your second degree black belt test. How long was that in its entirety?
It was about 45 minutes. Mr. Harris, my original black belt exam, was about 3.5 hours under Mr. Harris, and it was a mix of positional sparring, and teaching examples, and man, it's one of those lifetime events. I felt like I'd been training my entire life for that event, and that was great. Couple injuries, and it's just tough. He wants to see your heart. It is not easy. And then the second degree was 45 minutes, much more high pressure. Instead of selecting my training partners like I did for my black belt exam, it was in front of my students, and he just called people up to roll with me and do positional escapes, positional sparring, and it was tough. It's basically the demonstrations that I encourage my students to do, which are optional, but most people like to do them. We have a technical portion where there's no resistance, and that's kind of their warm-up. And then you go to the meat grinder and you spar. But with Mr. Harris, it's straight to the meat grinder. There was no warm-up. I wish I had warmed up more, and I wish I was in better shape for it. I might be doing. It's been 4 years since, and Mr. Harris is coming to town, so I might be doing a third-degree exam here in this next year, and I'm already starting to prepare. I need to be ready for that.
Oh, that's awesome.
So, Roy, when you just like kind of going back a little bit, just especially the competition and whatnot, when you competed back in the day, and I guess even for like the students that you have.
Back in the day, it was like 2009. It's like.
So, I mean more when you like started competing. What was always the goal for you? Was it to just win the tournament that you were in, or was it to kind of find holes in your game? I'm kind of curious what your approach to it is, or what you recommend for these folks.
I'm glad you asked that, because for me, there are people that love. I see it. There are people that love to compete. They feel most alive when they're on the mat. Everything else drops away, and it's their full expression of themselves. I never liked competing that much. I did it because I knew it would get me better, and I even made it an enjoyable experience when your training camp goes well and you're in shape and technically you're really sharp. Like it can feel like a celebration going to that tournament and doing well. It can be great, but a real competitor wants to compete. He doesn't care if he's injured. I'm going to compete anyway. Oh, my knee! I just came off surgery. Well, I think I can do it. I think I can do it. So for me, it was about evolving technically. Showing me the competition shows you the holes in your game so brutally, right away, particularly at blue belt level. Like you can have a pretty developed guard, but maybe somebody passes your guard and you don't have any side mount escapes, and competition alerts you to that, and you can't deny it. So it really tells you exactly what you need to focus on and where you need to fill in your game. And the guys that I admired, it's important to have kind of jiu-jitsu heroes, people you admire technically, and you emulate their game, you emulate their movement, their game, how they do their setups, all that. And the guys that I saw winning the tournaments, they were killers, like Cameron Earl and David and Dan Camarillo and Tyrone Glover. These guys were winning tournaments and finishing people, and I was like, I want to be that good, so this is what I have to do.
That's awesome.
Do you feel like
pushing? Go ahead.
I was just going to ask, do you feel like competition is a key requirement for progression in jiu-jitsu through the ranks?
It is not necessary, but it's an accelerant. If you compete and you compete regularly, you accelerate your development a lot. I think Eric Paulson said, one match is equivalent to 6 months in the gym. Maybe I'm not quoting him correctly, but you definitely learn a lot. And if you want to advance quicker, you got to compete. In fact, the judo system that I did in Japan, you can do different ways, but it's through shiai, it's through competition, and you have to fight a certain number of people at your rank, You have to win the matches, and then you fight a certain number of people at the next rank, and it gets harder and harder and harder. But they honor that because they recognize the value of competition, how it makes you eliminate some things, and it makes you realize what's working for you, and you tend to stick with it.
You said you're always pushing for the finish in a match. How do you feel about sport jiu-jitsu today and guys who play like a points game, who are looking for those points and they're stalling out for the points and things like that?
I mean, the art. Yeah, the art is deep. I think you can have, and it's big enough for everybody and every approach. So you can have, kind of traditional Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, self-defense oriented, Helson Gracie. You can do more MMA Vale Tudo stuff, and the sport Jiu-Jitsu has totally evolved, and it's much more acrobatic. It's much more strategic. It's much more of a points game. It's amazing. I really respect it. And the level of conditioning that it takes to succeed at the world level, oh my God. The dedication. You put certain constraints, and then you evolve further in other realms because of those constraints. And, the conditioning of those competitors, the berimbolo and technical wizardry and leg drags and, being able to do things that are not quite in fashion yet, and you gain a technical advantage. Back in the day, that was half guard with Eddie Bravo, and then it's the leg drag with the Mendez brothers. I mean, people get those things that are less known. I mean, leg drag existed before them, but then they kind of brought it into prominence, and then there's this rediscovery, and without the competition, like Aikido, with the exception of Tomiki Aikido, has no competition. And if you don't have any competition, you kind of lose the teeth in an art, especially jiu-jitsu. You need that proving ground, even if it gets maybe a little bit too fantastic with a lot of an inverted game or a lot of stalling and then a sweep at the end. Hey man, that's part of it. Consequences gratefully accepted. It's better that more guys are training.
Excellent. That's a great answer. How would you compare judo competition to jiu-jitsu competition in terms of intensity?
You get more tired in judo. I think you get more tired in judo. Although your conditioning, when you go into a judo match, you have a different kind of conditioning. You're so much more well rooted to the ground through your feet, and when you do stand up is exhausting. So I think physically it's faster and it's more intense. You can rest so much more in jiu-jitsu. I mean, there's opportunities to do that, but jiu-jitsu matches can be really hard, and tournaments can be grueling, and especially if if you have a popular weight class, like you're a middleweight. I remember back doing the U.S. Open, this guy that I trained with, he had like one match because he was a super heavyweight. There were like 64 guys in my bracket. I'm like, oh my God, and that doesn't seem fair, but yeah, it's all good. I'm totally okay with any form of competition.
Yeah. Any chance of coming out of retirement, Dean? Like, there's a super fight, like at a Metamoris level or something like that. Does that interest you at all? Like, I know somebody at your level would probably have to put in a huge camp or a training regimen for that. But is this something that interests you at all?
I'm not fired up at the moment for that. But a couple people suggested. There are two things that would interest me, maybe doing some kind of super fight in Japan, because I studied judo in Japan. It would be so cool to go back and just do one match over there and just kind of, I don't know, in a way pay homage to, what they did for me by putting me on this trajectory. Some other people, yeah, at a Metamoris event, I could get into coming out for a special match, but I would need to do like a real training camp and train with the top guys, because I would want to do it right, and that would mean a shift in focus. I'd have to step away from the academy a little bit, and it would be a big thing, but it's not out of the question. It's all about doing it right, doing it properly.
Yeah. Awesome. Guys, let's put the direction a little bit on the instructionals, and because so Roy, I mean, you're probably better known for your your really detailed instructional videos, YouTube and whatnot. Well, what even got you started on that? I mean, we had Kurt Osiander on not too long ago. Well, it's been since October now. It's been a while, and he's got the move of the week, and he gave us a little explanation on how it got started, and he's really well known for that. So, what got you started in that? And yeah, let's start there.
So before I was teaching jiu-jitsu, I was just training down in Southern California. Graduated from UC San Diego and got a job as an audio engineer at this production company. So I was training. I was a purple belt, and then I was still working there, and I got my brown belt. And it was a challenging position, but over time I started to learn a little bit of video editing, and I started learning other aspects of production, and it just dawned on me. I was like, man, I would love to just make jiu-jitsu videos. That would be so cool if I could just make jiu-jitsu videos. And this, I mean, YouTube barely existed back then, but I was kind of making my own little commercials and putting together jiu-jitsu highlights on video. A lot of it was study as a purple belt, like taping tournaments and watching sparring. And over time, I realized that a lot of people were coming to my instructor, and they were teaching martial arts professionally, and I wasn't happy with my job anymore. I decided I needed to do something else, and I said, "Oh my God, I've been training all my life, and I'm like Mr. Harris's adopted son, my training partner, and I should do this. I should do this. I love jiu-jitsu." And so I quit my job, I moved to Bend, and I put my media skills to work trying to... It wasn't really about doing instructionals. It was about showing that jiu-jitsu was beautiful, that jiu-jitsu was very sophisticated. Sometimes it can kind of come off as thug, but man, it doesn't need to be that way. It's much deeper than that. Yeah, it can be used effectively, but the art has a lot more to offer than just self-defense. And I just wanted to put it in the best light possible, and that led to instructionals and other artistic videos where I just wanted to show what the art was like and leave people with a positive impression of it. So if they run across my video on YouTube, it's more about them just, hey, I like that. I don't know why I like that. Was it the music? Was it because of the editing? Because of the storytelling involved? Nobody thinks about that. I don't want them to think about that. I just want them to have a positive impression of the art. And jiu-jitsu needs to spread. It's a really powerful human technology that empowers people. And the more people that are practicing it, the better people think of it as a high, noble art, the better off we'll all be.
Awesome.
That's a really good point you make too, as well, Roy. Just in terms of the presentation, because I've run into so many people, and who ask, oh, what's jiu-jitsu? What's jiu-jitsu all about? What's it like? And the two videos, the two videos that I normally show them, I go to your page, or Dave Camarillo is another one who does. Who's done a lot of really great videos, but you do a really good job of painting the art in a really nice light, like you said. So definitely you're achieving what you're setting out to do with those.
I appreciate you saying that.
And furthermore, you have some videos out there right now. I think from January or so, but you're using the GoPro now?
Yeah, GoPro. So I got a GoPro because I wanted to experiment with like slow motion videography, and I ended up sending the tipping point, that's the name of the video, the tipping point, over to the people at GoPro, and they were like, we love it. We want you to do something like that, but include these shots. And so I signed a contract, and we're going to be shooting a GoPro video for them relatively soon. After I signed the contract, I ended up injuring my elbow, so I had to take a little bit of time off. But we're back on it. And in addition to that project, which I'm excited about, Stuart Cooper, the filmmaker, he came out and stayed with me for a week, and I think he's going to come out with a really nice video on what I'm doing here in Bend, and I don't know. I'm really excited about this collaborative project that we embarked on.
Yeah, I saw
awesome.
the trailer for that. It looks like it's going to be pretty awesome. Stuart Cooper comes out with some pretty cool videos.
Dude, absolutely cool guy, and he taught me a few things. He taught me a few things about his camera, his lens, and man, I gotta steal it. I bought. I can't go back. I can't go back now that I've seen how good his stuff looks and how he does it. So it was great.
Well, I mean, the one I saw was like it was like a first-person perspective of you like grabbing someone's lapel and it's like a totally different way to really show. They're like now with my left hand you put it here. That sometimes it's hidden or whatever, but like you can see it from your perspective. It's pretty sick. So if you're gonna continue with that, do more of that stuff in the first person. That'd be crazy.
Oh, will do. Will do.
Yeah.
I definitely want that GoPro one to be special. I mean, GoPro is like that. It could be that crossover medium where people that that are into motorsports or they're into skiing or whatever. I mean, they do a lot of skiing, snowboarding stuff with the GoPros, but let's show martial arts from a first-person perspective and some really sick technique.
We need to rip that off so that we do our podcast with the GoPro. Adam,
first person podcast.
Yeah, let's do
Us
that.
looking at our computers.
Yeah. We're gonna do that. Okay.
Oh, right. That's really great. Is there anything kind of closing thoughts or anything else that you kind of like to leave our listeners or watchers with?
I kind of want to bring it back to you guys. Like you guys all train. You guys are doing a podcast. You have sponsors. You're doing this. And connecting with people in the jiu-jitsu community for people in the jiu-jitsu community. And this is exactly what needs to happen. Everyone has a voice, a unique voice, and to just be able to contribute to the community and keep this going, keep this dialogue going so the art can evolve. It's good work, man. You guys are doing a good thing.
Sure, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. No, it's made like we started maybe less than a year ago. We've had some amazing people on, like too many to even name, and yeah, I know, man. It's wild. Like I love it. Like at this day and age, for example, we're speaking with Roy Dean right now. He's just at home, just relaxing.
I remember when I first started jiu-jitsu, I remember watching all your videos, and now it's like we're just talking to you. It's
yeah, we're chilling with you right now. I mean, this is the age we're in, and it's great. We do it on YouTube. We do it live. We do it on, then afterwards we provide it on iTunes and an audio format for those who don't want to watch us. But
also recently we started cutting up the videos into little clips that are a little more digestible, just because not everybody wants to listen to a whole hour conversation. So we're trying to just spread jiu-jitsu as much as we can. But
it's good, man, and it's such a small community. And I mean, and you can travel. One of the most amazing things is you can travel. And you have an excuse to travel, and you have an excuse to make new friends in a new city right away.
I mean, even just like moving to, because we're all initially from around the Toronto, Canada area, but I recently moved to San Francisco and just came to the Half Gracie gym where Kurt Osiander teaches. And within like about a month, I had close friends, and I was like already integrated within the city. It was pretty crazy.
Awesome. Yeah, man, that's what it's all about.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, Roy, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. Like, to your point, the size of the community, one of the great things about jiu-jitsu is that, we can reach out to these people that, that we idolized when we started, that kind of helped form our journey, and they're so accessible. So thank you so much for coming on today. We really, really appreciate it.
It's been a pleasure. Thanks for asking such interesting questions, and keep going, guys. Keep going.
Okay, great.
Final, Roy, sorry. Any upcoming projects or any sponsors you want to make a shout out to?
Origin is making some fantastic gis, and I really believe in what they're doing. I just want to give a shout out to Origin. Shout out to my instructor, Professor Roy Harris. Thank you for all the teachings. And I have an upcoming DVD called Pure Rolling, where I and a bunch of killer purple belts and a brown belt get together and we just roll with each other. Stuart Cooper filmed it. He did it all in slow motion, so crystal clear slow-mo. with analysis. I'm cutting it up right now. It's looking sick, and I'm looking forward to sharing that. So a lot of people have suggested over the years that I do a DVD just of that, and yeah, still creating, and I appreciate all the support from people in the jiu-jitsu world.
Amazing.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, Roy. And that looks like that's a wrap for episode 39 of Just the Gi Talk podcast. So thank you to everybody who tuned in live, and we'll see you next week.